I don't think I have ever seen a play like The Years, and I think that is a tragedy because this was phenomenal. After a successful run at the Almeida Theatre, The Years has transferred into the West End. This play is based on the autobiography of Annie Ernaux and explores her life from childhood to old age. Her life is full of these real, authentic experiences that are so wonderfully translated to stage. So, what did I think of The Years, and why did it click with me? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets and rankings, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive into The Years. Just before we start, I'm going to give a slight spoiler warning. I think to do this play justice and to really speak authentically about why I loved it, I have to go into detail about a lot of the main plot points of this play. But please be aware of minor to middling spoilers throughout this review. When you look at it and you lay out the plot of The Years on paper, it is rather simple. It is the life of an ordinary woman. The ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, but I think there's something so beautiful about that. These real, authentic, lived experiences that sometimes are not given a proper space on stage to be dived into, to be explored. And The Years does just that, telling this life through 5 different actors, all ebbing and flowing, taking their turn to play the lead. Each representing one era of Annie's life. From childhood to teens to her 20s to adulthood and to old age. By switching roles and each taking the baton, they show the entire span of Annie's life. Never once naming this woman, just like the autobiography does. It never uses the word I. It never gives us a name. This woman could be anybody. And I think that makes it even easier to attach to it. Especially if you have similar experiences to the ones portrayed in this play, you can very easily attach your personal experience to what this play is presenting, especially when the experiences that it dives into are so common. These are real things that many women experience on a daily basis. And I think there's a beauty in how they present it so naturally, especially when it comes to the more taboo subjects in the play. You realize quickly how it's going to tackle a lot about sexuality and adolescence and growing up and that coming of age side of things. And I think it's very refreshing how it tackles these. Something I want to speak about in a lot of detail is how it portrays female masturbation. I think there is a real difference, not just in how plays and theatre and film and TV present things like this, but also how society portrays sexuality and lust. Especially when you compare that between how it presents male sexuality and female sexuality. Males masturbating has been so normalized in a way, and I don't think the same can be said about female masturbation, while both are extremely natural. I think women's sexuality is often softened in a way, especially when you compare this to how male sexuality is often portrayed. I think a great example of this is looking back at other plays that deal with similar experiences, something like Spring Awakening. If you look at the musical version that I'm more familiar with, you see like the boys, as they start to realize their sexuality, they're so pent up. You get that in songs like Bitch of Living, you get that in songs like My Junk, where you see this like pent-up sexual frustration from the boys. They're humping things. They're masturbating on the toilet. It's all of this pent-up sexuality, especially in such a repressed area. But then you compare that to how Spring Awakening presents female sexuality, where they're just kind of sitting there twirling their hair going, oh my god, isn't Melchior Gabor so hot? Oh, I'd love to date him. I know it seems weird to speak in detail about a musical that's got nothing to do with this play, but I want to use this as an example of how historically and how in media that I have seen, This coming of age and this attitude to sexuality has been presented. Because I think this is a common thread. Masturbation in males is so commonly portrayed. We have seen time and time again stories told and this idea naturalized. Whereas I don't think it has with women. This play treats this in a very similar way to how masturbation has been portrayed for men. It's just presented as her naturally finding her body. Because of how society kind of looks down on this, especially in women, I don't think I have ever seen a play tackle this in this kind of way. And it's refreshing. It's normal. And by setting that up, we then get these really heartbreaking explorations of sex and the first sexual encounters that this woman has with men. The naivety around sex, the attitudes that this woman has, and how that's taken advantage of and exploited by the men in her life. And while this isn't a positive experience of it, how she keeps going for it because she thinks in a way that that's what she needs to be doing, despite the horrific things that this boy does to her. I think another thing that this play really thoroughly explores in a way that I don't think I've seen is how it tackles abortion. They are being very open and very honest and very upfront with their trigger warnings and making sure that the audience is aware of how this scene goes, because of how brutal and how real and how horrifying this experience is. And I think there is a real importance to that. I think we live in a day and age where we have made real progress on abortion, but we are seeing a lot of forces trying to pull that back. And without good access to medical abortion, we see a lot of women having to go through very similar experiences to the woman in this play. I really sincerely hope that a scene like this can be really eye-opening, especially in the brutality of how they portray this. How desperate she is, the pain, and also how she has to deal with a lot of this alone, without many people there to support her, without people who physically know what they're doing. And this experience on stage is all done in the descriptions. They show very little on stage when it comes to the gore side of things, but the language portrays everything, really capturing how graphic this moment is, how horrific this is. And it's terrifying to watch this in a time where we know that there are many forces around the world, meaning that this might be one of the only options for women seeking abortions. The play has so many of these moments, capturing these taboo subjects and exploring them in so much depth. And we continue to see this woman living her life. She grows into adulthood. She stands up for what she believes in. We see her campaigning. We see the change in attitudes over time. Not just the world around her, but also her own. How she holds herself in this world. We see her family life. We see divorce. We see her falling in and out of love at many different ages. All of these presented with such clarity and such humanity. There's a real realism to how it portrays these really sensitive issues. But these issues that are common, these issues that a lot of women go through day to day. So while it's very easy to sum this play up in one line, just the life of one woman told by 5 actors, you can very easily sum the play up like that. There's so much within it, and all of it is so thoroughly important. A real life full of real experiences that people go through every single day, being presented with full authenticity on stage. I believe that that's really, really important. I think theatre is always a fantastic way for not just people to see themselves, but for also other people who haven't gone through these experiences to build empathy for them. And I think womanhood, the good, the bad, the in-between is all presented masterfully on stage in this production. So much so that you would come out of this theatre and you just have so many women, so many people just expressing how seen they felt. I think that this play is just so perfectly crafted, so thoroughly engaging, so raw, but so beautiful. And this is matched with some fantastic direction as well. Aline Arbo has not only adapted this story from the autobiography, but has also directed this production and weaves in this beautiful imagery throughout. It magnificently brings this story to life on stage. From the very first moment of the piece where we see these backlit women, we can't make out their faces. All we can see is the shape of them, the shadow, as they face us delivering this very stern monologue. Well, technically it's not a monologue because it's split between the 5 people, but they're all playing one person. So technically it's a monologue. Would we say it's a monologue? This is where the theatrical terms kind of come and weave. I don't know how we would describe this. I'm going with monologue. They're one person. I'm going with monologue. I don't know if you agree. I'm going with monologue. This light slowly raises up, slowly rising. So you can see more and more of the shape of these women, but not their faces. I think from the very start, this sets the idea that this story could be about any woman. These experiences are so universally shared. And as well as that, just looks really, really striking on stage. We have this wonderful stage design by Jewel Decker, and these banners, these bed sheets, that each kind of form a scene and then are slowly crafted into these pillars representing every single different age. These are slowly crafted into the set design of the show, each being hung up at the back of the stage, almost like a memory, almost like this life is being crafted into the background before our very eyes, as this play continues on and on and on. Throughout each of the scenes, these are just naturally part of the set. They lay on a table and cover the table in a sheet. And in each scene, we see them covered with something else. Whether it's blood, whether it's food, whether it's champagne, whether it becomes part of a protest, these each just get so naturally incorporated into the piece and carry so much meaning. It's such a clever way to approach this and to show the life in a physical way on stage, as well as telling the story through the actual piece. There's a circular rail that goes around the entire width of the stage. I honestly immediately thought it was a revolve. I think that's the best way to describe it, just using words. It kind of looks like a revolve on stage. But these rails are used to push pieces along, each on little carts that they can move around for bringing a radio to the front of the stage, for bringing around costume pieces, or even to create a march, to create a protest. And if you want to get really deeply into it, I guess this circle could also represent the cycle of life. The circle of life. We're getting into Lion King now. It's the circle of life. And I think one of the most impactful moments, I don't want to spoil it too much, but the final image of this piece has just really stuck with me. There's a little moment they do with projection and these pillars that just brings it all together in one final moment. And it's stunning. It's beautiful. It sums up the entire piece so wonderfully. Some fantastic work here. And let's speak about this fantastic cast. Firstly, I want to mention them as a unit because I think they work so well together. You can tell there's a real trust and a connection between these 5 women on stage. I think it's so evident with how they present this piece. And I think that's so important to making sure this story can be told, as they weave and flow between these roles. While I admit that it is a little bit hard to realize what's going on right at the start, it takes a little bit of time to kind of make it click in your head that, oh, okay, these are all one woman. They are all telling the story of one woman, and they're switching between being the woman and being the other people in the woman's life. But I think once that clicks and once you realize that, you really have a moment to appreciate how they're switching between these roles, how effortlessly they're doing this through these pictures, through these videos, and these markers of this woman's life. Harmony Rose Bremner is the first. She plays the woman during her childhood. We see a lot of discussions about war and how she just missed out on that period. There's a real innocence to Harmony's portrayal, which is beautiful. And I also want to note about her singing as well. She performs these beautiful songs throughout the piece, and actually gets some really great comedic moments with some of her supporting roles later on. Anjali Mahindra plays the girl in her teenage years, presenting a girl coming of age. I think her performance really sticks with me, especially the moment with her encounter with the boy. As Mahindra switches between the two, the way she delivers this dialogue, and you just feel the naivety, you feel the fear, you feel the uncertainty. It's so human. A really great portrayal. We then move on to the woman in her 20s, played by Romola Garai. Garai gets the most brutal scene in the entire piece, and her fear is palpable in her delivery. She is alone on stage for a good 5-10 minutes just delivering this scene, and the presence she has on that stage is unforgettable. And I love the contrast of her then in that scene, and then how we see her kind of come into herself a lot more. We see her grow, we see her live her life, and how she overcomes that trauma. We then see her firmly into adulthood, played by Gina McKee. I love how McKee builds the relationships in her life, you know, her relationship with her family, with her sons, with her lovers. She leads with a real authenticity, I feel, tackling that age where society often forgets about women. And finally, we have Deborah Finley, presenting the final stage of this woman. We see her life come full circle now, and we see the woman's drive to get the novel finished. Finley presents this absolutely beautiful monologue towards the end that I think sums up the piece so wonderfully. This cast are phenomenal. This cast is fantastic. All working together as such a tight unit to present this story of one woman. The Years is a piece that has really stuck with me. At times, it's beautiful. At times, it's brutal. At times, it's haunting. But throughout it, it's real. I was just completely and utterly engrossed with this play and the important natural story it was telling. A real profound piece of theatre. But what do you think? Have you seen The Years either at the Almeida or now in the West End? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. There's a lot of other social links and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!